Emma Carter stood before the full-length mirror in her childhood bedroom, barely recognizing the woman staring back at her. The ivory lace of her wedding dress shimmered in the golden afternoon light pouring through the windows, casting a soft glow across her nervous but excited face. Today was supposed to be the happiest day of her life. Every detail was planned to perfection, from the flowers to the music and the elegant reception awaiting her downtown. Yet as she watched the delicate beating catch the sunlight, a quiet weight settled on her chest. At her feet, her beloved German shepherd, Duke, lay motionless, his deep brown eyes locked with hers with a different intensity. At 10 years old, Duke had been with her through high school, college, and now adulthood. She'd saved him when he was just a skinny 8-month-old puppy, but he'd saved her in ways she could never quite put into words. Normally, he would have jumped up and down with excitement, sensing the energy of the day. But now he was unusually still, his ears barely twitching as she spoke. "What do you think, buddy?" she asked, forcing a smile as she reached down to scratch behind his ears. "Did I make the right choice?" Duke didn't move, didn't wag his tail. Instead, he let out a slow, deep breath and rested his head against her leg. A flicker of worry curled in her stomach. Something was wrong. Emma pushed aside the uneasy feeling in her stomach, convincing herself that Duke was just sensing the excitement of the day. But as the house buzzed with activity, bridesmaids adjusting their dresses, her mother directing the photographer, and the distant hum of guests arriving, Duke remained planted by her side, his body pressed firmly against her legs. He followed her every move, his breathing shallow, his usually strong frame trembling ever so slightly. "Come on, Duke, let's go," she whispered, gently tugging his collar as her bridesmaids gathered to leave for the church. But Duke wouldn't budge. Instead, he leaned into her, his warm body radiating a heat that felt unnatural. "Is he okay?" Jenny, her maid of honor, asked, concern flickering across her face. Emma knelt, her dress pooling around her, and pressed her hand to Duke's chest. His heart was racing. A surge of panic gripped her. Something was definitely wrong. "We should get going," her mother called from the doorway. "The photographer wants to start with your solo shots." Emma hesitated, her pulse quickening. She had spent months planning this wedding, dreaming of this moment. But now, looking into Duke's soulful brown eyes, she knew, without a doubt, that nothing mattered more than him. "We're not going anywhere," she said firmly, reaching for her phone. With shaking hands, she dialed the vet. Jenny crouched beside her. "Emma, are you sure?" Emma swallowed hard, her heart pounding. "I can't leave him." Emma barely heard the concerned voices around her as the phone rang in her ear. Each second felt like an eternity. Finally, a voice answered. "This is Dr. Carter's office." "This is Emma Carter. Duke's not okay," she choked out. "His breathing is off, his heart is racing, and he won't leave my side. Please, I need help." The receptionist didn't hesitate. "Bring him in right away. Dr. Carter's here." Emma's hands trembled as she ended the call. She looked up at the small crowd gathering around her. Her mother, Jenny, the photographer, the wedding planner frantically whispering into her headset. Then she met her father's steady gaze. "Dad," she whispered. Without hesitation, he nodded. "Go." Tears burned her eyes. "But the wedding," her father's voice was firm but full of love. "Duke has been by your side through everything. You don't turn your back on family when they need you." Emma exhaled shakily. That was all she needed to hear. Jenny grabbed her hand. "I'll drive." Her mother hesitated but finally sprang into action. "I'll handle the guests. We'll figure everything out later." Emma gathered her skirts and moved toward the door. Duke followed, his legs shaky, pressing against her with every step. The elegant church, the vows, the perfectly arranged flowers, all of it faded into the background. Right now, only one thing mattered. "Hold on, Duke," she whispered as Jenny started the car. "I'm not letting you go." The car ride to the vet was agonizing. Emma sat in the back with Duke's head resting in her lap, her pristine wedding dress spread around them like a cloud. She barely noticed the fabric wrinkling beneath his weight, too focused on the slow, uneven rise and fall of his chest. "Just hang on, buddy," she murmured, running trembling fingers through his fur. "We're almost there." Duke let out a quiet sigh, his warm breath against her wrist, sending a fresh wave of fear through her. He had always been her rock, her protector, her constant, her best friend. Now, as he lay motionless, it felt like the world was tilting beneath her feet. Jenny tightened her grip on the steering wheel, glancing at Emma in the rearview mirror. "We'll be there in 2 minutes." Emma nodded, her throat tightening as she stroked Duke's graying muzzle. Memories flashed through her mind. The first day she brought him home, the nights he curled up beside her when she cried, the way he always knew when she needed him. And now, when he needed her the most, she wouldn't fail him. The clinic came into view. Before the car had even stopped, Dr. Carter was already at the door, his expression grave as he rushed toward them. Emma's heart pounded. "Help him," she pleaded, her voice cracking as she lifted Duke's heavy frame into her arms. Dr. Carter met her eyes. "We'll do everything we can." Emma paced the small exam room, her wedding dress rustling with every frantic step. Duke lay on the table, his breathing shallow, his eyes barely open. Dr. Carter worked quickly, checking his pulse, listening to his heart, his face unreadable. Every second felt like a lifetime. "Please," Emma whispered, gripping the edge of the counter, her fingers white-knuckled. "Tell me he's going to be okay." Dr. Carter sighed, setting down his stethoscope. His eyes, kind but heavy, met hers. "Emma, Duke is in heart failure. His heart is working overtime just to keep going." The words hit her like a punch to the gut. "No," she whispered, shaking her head. "No, he was fine just a few days ago. These conditions can progress rapidly, especially in older dogs," Dr. Carter said gently. "The stress of today likely made it worse. He's been trying to tell you something was wrong, the only way he knew how." Emma's legs felt weak. She lowered herself onto the chair beside Duke, her hand finding his fur. "By staying with me," she murmured, realization crashing down. He had known. He hadn't blocked her path out of excitement or confusion. He had been asking for help. Tears blurred her vision. "What can we do?" Dr. Carter hesitated. "We can start medication. It'll help, but we're looking at months, not years." Emma swallowed hard, her heart shattering. "Then I'll be here," she whispered, pressing her forehead to Duke's. "Just like he's always been for me." The weight of Dr. Carter's words settled deep in Emma's chest, but there was no hesitation in her heart. Duke had been by her side for every milestone, every heartbreak, every moment that mattered. She wouldn't leave him now, not when he needed her most. As Dr. Carter explained the treatment plan, Emma sat on the floor beside Duke, her wedding dress pooling around her like a protective cocoon. She stroked his fur, whispering soft reassurances. The wedding, the perfect venue, the carefully planned day. It all faded into insignificance. This was where she was meant to be. Just as she reached for her phone to update Michael, the clinic doors swung open. There he was, still in his tuxedo, his tie slightly undone, eyes full of understanding. He knelt beside her without a word, resting a hand on Duke's back. "You don't have to go through this alone," Michael said softly. Emma looked at him, then at Duke, and for the first time that day, she let herself cry, because she knew this moment, this choice, was what love truly meant. Duke wouldn't be with them forever, but the love he had given them, the lessons he had taught them, would last a lifetime. This story is a reminder that love isn't about perfect plans. It's about showing up when it matters most. Have you ever had a pet who changed your life? Share your story in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more heartwarming stories.